Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Road to Cheltenham. Tom Stanley and James Millman in for Lydia Hislop and Ruby Walsh in what is the greatest use of substitution since Sir Alex Ferguson brought on Teddy Sheringham and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the 1999 Champions League final. James, how are you? The Road to Cheltenham is getting shorter all the time.
It is not long. Last prep's really in place, either last weekend or this weekend coming. And yeah, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wouldn't even go that far with me substituting for Ruby, but great to be here.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking I was Ollie and you were Teddy Sheringham.
Teddy.
Yeah. I mean, Teddy was good, but Ollie scored the vital one.
Excellent stuff.
It's fine.
Modest as ever, Thomas.
Exactly. You know. Yeah. I'm keeping my feet firmly on the ground. Shall we get stuck into the Boyne Hurdle? We are, of course, going to be looking back. We're going to be looking ahead as well. As James said, you know, we're sort of final time for clues. We'll be looking ahead to the action this weekend. But the Boyne Hurdle gave us a big clue as to what is likely to turn up at Cheltenham and perhaps what is likely to win at Cheltenham in the Stayers Hurdle, because Blazing Carl was frighteningly good, I thought, back off 14 months off. Philip Burns on board now for trainer Charles Burns. Had some good form coming into it, sometime since we've seen the horse. What did you make of this, James?
Great to see him back on track. So good in his hurdles as a novice. Didn't see him for nearly 14 months. And Philip Burns back on board. He rode him in his bumpers. Didn't over hurdles last year. And this was a big test for him. What was key? St. Sam already weakening there in the red, blue and white. He normally makes the run, and I think Ruby and Road to Cheltenham last week thought he would provide pace to the race. There was no pace to the race. He's ended up having a nice run round. He's jumped well. Very satisfactory, I think, for a horse that in second meet and greet provides a bit of solid form on a going day. He was only 3.5 lengths by Homeball Ali in the Christmas Hurdle, and third to Nice Guy at Punchestown. So it's a lovely comeback. Jockey Philip Burns probably lacks experience. Normally claims the £5. So it was good that they got a clear round and everything went well. Cheltenham itself is going to be certainly a pressure cooker experience for Philip Burns. He's had 2 rides at Cheltenham, a winning one on the Pertemps horse. He's got a pretty good chance in that Shoot First. And I think how day 3 goes in the Pertemps, if Shoot First is a real solid ride on him in the Pertemps, and that goes very well, I think that'll give the jockey a lot of confidence heading into the Stayers Hurdle. If it doesn't go so well in Shoot First, it might just play on a young rider's mind heading into that. So if you're back in Blazing Carl, I think you've got to take into account that the jockey won't be claiming the £5 and he has that inexperience there, which is going to be important.
How do you look at that level of form? Because the reality is he hasn't beaten anything with a realistic chance in the Stayers Hurdle. Meet and Greet isn't in it. Beacon Edge is going to be a big price for it. Sire de Burley, well, he's a huge price for it, around about 100 to 1 for all he's in it. His form seems to have tailed off a bit. Delta Work we know isn't going to go down that route. So how do you actually weigh up that level of form for all visually it looked very impressive?
Because they went so slow, you're never going to get a spread out field to achieve a high rating. But I was pretty convinced by him, to be honest. You can go back to that novice form where he looks so good. Here we got Ballygriffin Cottage back in third, and again he beats Gelino Bello. He won a Sefton, which wasn't a strong Sefton, but that form, it's solid. He was giving away the penalty on this occasion. The Stayers, as a group, I think the young pretenders coming forward are the ones to concentrate on, and he's only going to improve. But he's had niggling issues that's kept him off the track. They weren't sure whether they're going to make the Stayers. The Boyne was the first step on the way. He's made that, and that was a good effort. Back to the Boyne itself, I just mentioned Delta Work. I thought that was a lovely trial for the cross country. Yeah. If you're looking for bankers throughout the week, it's the route that Tiger Roll took for his 3 cross countries, 2 wins in a second. He ran exceptionally well, given the weight away a few weeks previously on the cross country track, and I just thought Gordon Elliott's taking the route he'd always wanted to take.
Is there a scenario where you think St. Sam, who went off favourite for that race, even money favourite on the day in the Boyne, could be of interest to you for the Stayers Hurdle or not?
Well, I think they felt that he can't do the blasting front-running tactics, which is why they changed. It didn't work out. They said he was too keen. In the Boodles, he was held up and dropped out from his second of Jeff Kidder, so it can work for him, but he's just a bit of a tricky customer.
And what about the bounce factor for Blazing Carl? Is that a thing? We talk about horses off the back of a big absence. They might do it first up, but second up can be the concern. Is that in the back of your mind?
It can be, but I think they had a plan. If they didn't make the Boyne, they weren't going to go for the Stayers, so he wouldn't have been 100%. I think a lot of horses are more likely to bounce if you've really prepped them hard for that initial target. The Boyne was a step on the road to Cheltenham. So I do think that that shouldn't really be an issue as long as he comes out of it A1.
Okay, you get a prize every time you say the road to Cheltenham on the Road to Cheltenham show, so well done, that's first prize.
Secured.
Yeah, or a fine, I don't know. Let's have a look at the betting. 9-4 then Blazing Carl. Teupo is 3-1, Home by the Lee 4-1. The only one that was really considered from the race last year. Marie's Rock is 9-2. Is that where she's going to go? A Gold Tweet is going to be supplemented 6-1. It's a real changing shape of a market, isn't it? The likes of Paisley Park, and all the Champ and the home team, they're sort of faded out of it, and we've got new kids on the block at the top. Blazing Carl, Teupo, who stepped up in trip well last time, Gold Tweet, the French horse. What's of interest to you at this stage, James?
I think Gold Tweet, the race set up perfectly for him last time. Dasher Drasher, Rex Dingle, rode Dasher Drasher to beat Paisley Park, set steady fractions, but that really suited the French horse. I'd be heading for the younger ones at the top in the market. Teupo, I think, is the one for me at the moment. Well, I say Philip Burns is inexperienced. It could be something that plays at the end of the race there in the Stayers Hurdle, so I'm going to stick elsewhere at the moment.
Okay. I thought Blazing Carl was very impressive, finding him hard to look past for that Stayers Hurdle. We also had at the weekend the William Hill 10 up, and it went to Jonathan Sweeney's horse, Churchstone Warrior, who looked pretty impressive, I thought, in taking this. It can be a good guide, the 10 up to the National Hunt Chase. That's the only race he is in. Jonathan Sweeney has said earlier on in the week, look, we put our eggs in that basket. Hopeful we'll get a good amateur rider. I get the feeling the Irish National could be on his agenda, but what did you make of this performance from a horse that notably I thought jumped right at a lot of his obstacles?
It was a solid effort. You mentioned there that jumping right is pretty prevalent. Back in second, we've got a jockey that couldn't claim. Ben Harvey normally claims 5 on Mile and Mission. It was okay form. I actually liked the third horse, Flanking Maneuver. I hadn't been seeing him for 760 days, and he showed plenty of promise if he comes back sound for the future. I just thought it was a great advert for Galliard de Menil. He beat this horse 7.5 lengths back at Leopardstown. He's had 2 seasons chasing. All that experience gained last year, the third in the Irish National, shows he's going to stay the trip. He's Patrick Mullins' chosen mount quite a way in advance, and I just felt, again, I like Delta work as you bank over the cross country. Galliard de Menil, we see him here beating Churchstone Warrior. It was all very straightforward, and I thought dropping back to 2.5, he ran very well at the Dublin Racing Festival. And
strangely, Churchstone Warrior went left at a few of his obstacles on this occasion, so I don't know why he suddenly went right then last time. Maybe then that's less of a concern going back in left-handed to Cheltenham. Do you think the marathon trip will suit the second here?
Not against Galliard de Menil. Okay. You just see the way he's pulled away.
You can't see him reversing form.
No. I don't think there's much strength and depth to the race. I don't think there's going to be too many runners. So ante-post, backing him each way, maybe for getting the place money, I wouldn't put you off, but he isn't going to be reversing the form of the Willie Mullins horse, I don't think. Galliard
de Menil went down the Irish National route last year, having run in the 3-mile novice. And I get the impression from Jonathan Sweeney that is what Churchstone Warrior is considering, or he's considering for his horse off the back of the National Hunt Chase. Notable that Willie Mullins, I think, had 12 in it, and he took 9 out at the recent stage, leaving him with just 3 in it, and Galliard de Menil is the obvious one. Ramillies is 7-2, Churchstone Warrior 11-2, Mile of Mission 13-2. Anything catching your eye?
Ramillies also a Donnelly horse as well, isn't he? So you wouldn't imagine that both of them would run. City Chief, I quite liked him. I think he's coming good. Again, another one in the Donnelly colours for Nicky Henderson. On the whole, Galliard de Menil, I think, is, again, if you're setting up your multiples for the festival, he's a anchor leg.
And what we tend to see with the National Hunt Chase itself, and I know it's changed shape massively since it was reduced in trip and certain conditions for the amateur riders, etc., but experience can count for plenty in it. Well, Galliard de Menil, with 8 chase starts so far, just the one success that Leopardstown form is in, he really ticks that bill.
Yeah, and there isn't really many races that you've seen him running where he should have won. I think it's just he lacked a little bit of pace over 3 miles last year. The extra distance really played to his strengths, and yeah, I'm really pretty confident about him going forward.
We saw in the Novice Hurdle on the day, Hunter's Yarn beating Imagine. I know the way you're thinking. American Might was disappointing again, wasn't he? Has that bubble burst a bit for you?
It has to be. It's twice in a row that he's really stopped very quickly. You can see in front, they backed him. They felt he'd actually had an excuse for stopping so quickly on his previous start. And everything was going pretty smoothly if you backed American Mike. But when push comes to shove, he finds nothing, and the fact he finishes 4th is a real worry. Hunter's Yarn himself, very straightforward. Imagine, and I know what you're thinking, they're solid, but they're nothing special. he'll need to step up again going forward, I think.
Hunter's Yarn was pretty good, pretty accurate, wasn't he? And thought he showed plenty of pace as well.
Yes. What was interesting, he had one go in the bumpers, one go over hurdle, sorry, and he went back to bumpers last year because they wanted to keep the novice status for another year. So he's got that time and strength on his back. He was a little bit keen early doors. He's improving. He just needs to step up, and I'm not sure how strong that form was.
And we saw, I know you're thinking, keeping on there. That's 4 spins, I think, off the back of 2 successes, then a little break. I think it'd be interesting to see what handicap he's put into.
Possibly. I mean, he's come quite a long way in a short space of time, as you say, the 4 runs in one go. A JP McMahon is homebred. He's just solid. He might have just shown his hand a little bit in these small field races, I suppose, but we'll see what mark he gets. Yeah,
so he's got 137, although I don't know if that's off the back of the run the other day. But as far as Cheltenham handicap goes, that's lovely. That's sort of box tick to get him and not be carrying too much.
When the English handicapper gives a mark.
Well, he will.
So
yeah,
that's the issue, isn't it?
I would say that's an absolute given. But I thought he was interesting. Of course, you now have to have the 4 runs over obstacles to get into these handicaps, so you can't do a state man last year, for example. One thing that is interesting is Hunter's Yarn has carried the colours of Simon Neer and Isaac Swade to success. He looks like a supreme horse. Does that change the Moscow Flyers winner, his route to Cheltenham? Does it mean that Impere Passe goes up in trip to the Ballymore? The betting would seem to indicate so.
And the fact his first run came over 2-3. This season does suggest they felt stamina could be his forte. I'm not sure how strong that Moscow Flyer was. He beat a couple of mares on heavy ground, Model Kingdom. I'm not sure it would have been her ideal ground conditions. It was very much a straightforward success. But yeah, I think he might well be heading elsewhere. Lete Tom certainly boosted his claims to Supreme at the DRF.
So that is Facile Vega at the top of the betting, 11-4. Marine Nationale, we haven't seen the horse for some time. I'm going to put a tip up in this race later on, fear not. Impere Passe is 100-30, Il Était Temps 9-2, Gaelic Warrior 6-1. Anything catching your eye in this? Would you be looking further down the betting? Do you think Facile Vega, with his excuses last time, is that enough for you?
The excuses, as how valid are the excuses? That is the issue, as discussed in the past. The confidence behind Marine Nationale, I think, is fascinating. Barry Connor can't really have him getting beat. So it's such an open Supreme, which is good to see. We may get more runners we've had in the past 2 years. That might be more of an interesting aspect going forward.
OK, that is our look at the feature action from Ireland at the weekend. Big news in the Ryanair division when we return. The big news, of course, which I'm sure you're all aware of by now, Allaho out of the Ryanair chase. James, it's a shame for the race that the 2-time winner isn't going to come back to defend his crown. We always knew that was going to be his reappearance, but, well, it's blown the race wide open, hasn't it?
Oh, it has indeed, because the Ryanair kind of goes in the back burner as regards to finding a winner, because Allaho was so imperious in his 2 wins, one by 12 and 14 lengths respectively, never particularly looked in doubt. We know Willie Mullins, time after time, can get them ready for Cheltenham at a prep run. So I must admit, it wasn't really on my radar, but it really opens the race up now.
To who do you think, and we're going to get some clues this weekend, but of the likely candidates to go there, potentially some be rerouted there, is there anything obvious you think that will be really suited by the race?
Well, Saturday's going to tell us more about Shishkin. If the step up in trip, which is a quandary, if they can get him back to his best, he's the class angler in the race. I think a lot of the other horses probably going to be heading there. They wouldn't normally be good enough in traditional years against Allaho. Shishkin definitely can be. He had that hard race where an Ergamine got him off the bridle at Ascot in the Clarence House. Is he going to come back from that?
What will be interesting is whether or not the stepping up in distance means that he avoids that flat spot which he hit over 2. If we see that again, does he just have that run style, do you think? We'll learn more on Saturday.
Well, Ergamine is a very, very good 2-miler.
He is.
And he did get Shishkin out of his comfort zone, and he fought to get up literally on the line. It may be that is his running style now going forward. I thought he ran well in a Tingle Creek. Things didn't particularly go well. It wasn't a smooth run round. They tinkered with a few things. I think stepping up in trip is the right thing to do, to be honest. I probably would have tried it, and if it does open up really nicely this Ryanair.
You said an Ergamine is a very good 2-miler. Do you mean was?
I'm happy to forgive him.
Okay.
the recent run at Cheltenham, but he's so quick when you let him stride on that's why he got Shishkin out of his comfort zone. There's nothing in the Ryanair that's going to do that to Shishkin if he's back to his best.
Fakir Dudari is going to line up in the Ascot Chase. We know that off the back of that, Aintree will probably be his main target. That doesn't mean he won't take in a Ryanair, particularly now that the market leader, ante-post market leader, is out of the race. I guess that there's something perhaps about Aintree, maybe it's the quality of the field, which has just suited him better in the past.
I would say more quality of the field, to be honest. He managed to back up Aintree 2 years ago when he came second to Allaho. Last year they felt they weren't going to beat Allaho, so fair enough. Freshen him up, and Ascot I think would have been his main aim, and then go to Aintree, but it has opened up. He's very tough. He's a horse that can run quite regularly, takes his racing very well. He has a limit, doesn't he? We know exactly what he is. Shishkin is better than Fakir Dudare, but we kind of know that Joseph Bryan's horse is very consistent.
Yeah, and the betting on the race this weekend is fascinating, because it looks as though at the early stage that Fakir Dudari will go off ahead of Shishkin in the betting. That was certainly the case 48 hours before the race. Blue Law, definitely a possible to go up in trip. We know that Willie Mullins likes to have a leading chance in each race, with Allaho out, with Energumen in the champion chase. He's the obvious one from the yard to step up, isn't he?
He is. I'm concerned about the stamina. He hasn't really got up the hill at Cheltenham both times. He fell in the Supreme at the final hurdle. In the Arkle, he weakened a little bit disappointingly. Now, I know he won over 2.5 in the Clonmore chase, but they went very steady. It turned into a bit of a sprint, which would have suited him. He was disappointing the other day. I'm not sure stamina is going to be his thing for the extra distance, but like you say, Willie does like to have a strong hand, and at the moment his champion chase hands would be stronger than the Ryanair version.
And then you've got Fury Road, who seems to be suited by this sort of distance. Good enough?
Normally, no. But this is his ideal distance scenario, I think. We saw at a DRF where he hung left under pressure last time that he didn't quite see out the trip, I don't think. So dropping back to the intermediate distance is ideal for him. He will run up to his mark, a little bit like Fakir Dudare. They'd normally be vulnerable, but if there isn't a star, it's definitely the race to go for.
Okay, those are the main contenders now for the Ryanair, and plenty of them contesting races this weekend. As far as the Betfair Chase goes, the Betfair Ascot Chase, and we do also have the Red Mills over in Ireland at Gorham Park, but these are the final declarations for the Ascot Chase. I write Ryan Mania, Fakir Dudari, JJ Slevin, First Load David Bass, surely not going to line up, but we'll see. Miller's Bank, I know that Alex House is going to walk the track before racing to see if he lines up. Speaking to him on Thursday morning, not certain he's going to run unless it is on the easier side of good. Pic Dory looks likely, as does, we know, Shishkin. Who wins?
I've been very impressed with Pic Dory this season. I thought he was brilliant in the Peterborough Chase again at Kempton.
After all that, I thought you were going to say Shishkin.
Not for the Ryanair, Pic Dory, but okay. I do think Pic Dory will put him to the test. But if I saw Shishkin travel nicely in the race, again, Pic Dory is going to provide a little bit of a test and finish it off well to suggest that AE stays. I'd be happier than going towards the Ryanair. Pic Dory going that way around really suits him at Ascot.
But if Shishkin gets beaten in this, I know it's a grade 1, but you can't be confident he's going to go on and win.
If he beats Fakir Dudare, if they're second and third behind Pic Dory, then that wouldn't be so bad heading towards the Ryanair. I think the Ryanair has just opened up so much. I just want to see Shishkin look a little bit more back to what he was prior to at the Clarence House when he won last year. Is it in the back of your mind that the Clarence House broke him? That is the issue, isn't it? We're not going to find out until Saturday at Ascot exactly what Shishkin we got. There were signs at the Tingle Creek that he wasn't too far off. I wasn't too disappointed by that run. The other thing with Shishkin is in the Donnelly colours for the Ryanair, do the Donnellys have another horse who's going to line up in the Red Mills? Auton Calor needs to be supplemented for a Ryanair. He needs to be supplemented for a chase. But he looked as though he was going to go and win last time. Not definitely. Lining up here against Capodanno, battle over Doyen. He's surely going to have a handicap on his agenda. I know someone that thinks that. Duraso, Auton Calor and Janadil. Auton Calor was going to win last time, James, discuss. But pressure was applied going into that final obstacle. And as soon as pressure's applied to this horse, he does seem to fall apart. And Brian Cooper rode on this occasion. He's travelled into it nicely. He certainly looked like he was going to see out the trip better. He did at Punchestown Biting Gallop under Sharp. But I just feel as soon as you ask this horse a question, he normally goes backwards. Or here, he's just starting to edge right-handed.
What did he do wrong at the fence?
He just came down, didn't he?
But he jumped it all right, didn't he?
It was okay, but is this a sign of tiredness? As soon as you ask this horse to quicken, he can't physically do it. You're unlucky. French Dynamite back in second gets hampered. I just worry Cheltenham going back up the hill. Is he a strong enough stayer? Janadil takes him on in the Red Mill. Janadil, we haven't seen him really since he lost his confidence after 4 at Fairy House. He ran at Punchestown and disappointed. If he's back anywhere near, he'll provide him a little bit of a test. But his profile to me doesn't suggest a horse that's going to battle under pressure.
Okay, if he wins the Red Mills and you're the Donnellys, what do you do?
I think what Willie Mullins tells him to do. Shishkin, we're going to find out a lot more about Shishkin on Saturday as well. In the Red Mills, he might be able to win that not coming off the bridle. If Janadil, who hasn't run all season, first run of the year, he might not be quite at his peak. So it could be a facile success if we don't learn a lot. But I want to see him find under pressure.
But Willie Mullins might say off the back of that, right, let's supplement for the Ryanair. They've got a history of running 2 horses in the same race together. They did it in the Supreme a few years ago, in Shishkin's Supreme. But that would then open up for Blue Lord to come to stay in the 2 mile division. But whether or not the Donnellys want to have 2 horses in the same race, I don't know. I guess we'll just know more after this weekend.
Different yards is also a little bit easier to separate them because the trainers will be arguing their case. Like I say, they've done it in the past in the Supreme.
Okay, we had a... Oh, should we have a look at the betting first of all for the Ryanair? I want to get a selection from you. Right, 11-4 Fakir Duderi, Blue Lord 3-1. I don't know, does Lydia ask Ruby for a selection for every race they look at? I'm asking you.
Currently, it would be Shishkin, but I'd be waiting until Saturday to see what happens.
It'd be the horse that you think is going to get beaten on Saturday. Good.
Well, Pic Dory, I just think going that way around, he's pretty good. He's going to provide a nice test. I just like the way Pic Dory jumps. When he gets into a rhythm, we've seen him being pretty good this year.
Envoy Allen?
He looked good first time back, but there's so many disappointments. Talking about Alden Chloe doesn't particularly find under pressure. Envoy Allen sometimes is absolutely shocking. So who knows? It's such an open Ryanair. There's Allaho's departure has really left it as a wide open contest.
We will definitely know more this weekend. We asked you on social media who is going to win the Ryanair Chase. We gave you options. We had Fakir Duderi, Blue Lord, Shishkin, or something else. Well, you had to specify. You can't just say something else. Who is going to win the Ryanair Chase? And these were the results. Shishkin, like you. 33% of the vote went to Shishkin. Fakir Duderi was just behind, then Blue Lord and something else. I don't know what other people were specifying. These were some of the responses from those of you out there. I think Envoy Allen could be the forgotten horse at present. Look at that, John. I agree with you. At present, delivered Cheveley Park the hat-trick of wins in the Ryanair. He's won at 2 Cheltenham festivals. He's proven at Grade 1 level. Is ground versatile, and at 9 years old remains open to further improvement as a chaser. I don't know if he open to further improvement as a chaser. I'm not so sure, but whether he has to improve over this distance, I don't know.
Yeah, further improvement would be a little bit of a stretch. But if he ever gets back to what he was destined to be as a young horse, that Ryanair would be within his capabilities, that's for sure.
Fury Road, and just for a change, it's tomfoolery. I like that. Fury Road. So there's a few for Fury. Can you see that?
He's very solid.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's quite good enough. But if everything else falls apart, especially Saturday, it could well be a race that Fury Road can go pretty close in.
Okay, James focusing on Analyse This next up.
It's time to analyse this, and I've chosen Nick Scopel's ride on Orcan Risk in the Betfair Hurdle at Newbury on Saturday. Traditionally, an extremely competitive handicap hurdle where if you're on a horse that's perhaps high enough in the weights, you need to give him the perfect ride. And I felt Nick Scopel did just that. A horse who definitely improved over fences, but looking at his size, it's probably that he's improved literally from the summer break. And every single obstacle, while maybe a little bit high at some of the early ones, he gained ground on his rivals. And here was key. A lot of horses were keen in behind. The outside of Glorious Off in blue and red ranged up on his outside, which meant Nick Scopel couldn't get a breather. And further down the line to the home straight, Nick didn't panic. It's a long way home, and he could have gone early, but hit 2 out. And then Nick asked for a question. On his outside, Filey Boy He was around 5-6 lengths off early doors, had a fair bit of ground to make up. He fluffed 2 out. As they come to the final hurdle, what I thought was key here, having taken the inside route, there's no rail to keep Orc and wrist straight, but Nick Schofield, he's adept at switching his whip between the left and the right hand, keeps his horse relatively straight without having a rail to help him, whereas Filey Boy, Dynamite, has taken him to the stand side. A length in it at the line. I felt the better handicapped horse came second. Both ran cracking races, but I thought Nick Schofield, that was at the perfect ride and was a competitive handicap.
And for me, for our whole yard, for the owner, to have a runner in a Gold Cup, yeah, to send the back of me.
So that's the plan. If you can just, and do you have to keep progressing to get there, or is that just we're going for
Well,
it?
he's rated 170.
Yeah.
A 170 horse could win it.
Yeah.
Do you know? Like, if the ground came up quick, right? So the dream is still alive.
Yeah.
For the full episode, head to the Paddy Power Racing YouTube page. Teddy Sheringham and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer are back with you. We are going to turn our attention back again to Warwick and to Jonbon's performance in the Kingmaker. One rival he had to face. We thought it was going to be a walkover. Calico gave him something to think about.
Well, here in the early stage, it does look like Harry Skelton's accepting a gallop round for second place and a nice prize, and that's probably what Aidan Coleman thought pre-race. Take it easy. Heading for a prep run for Cheltenham, don't want to overexert him when you don't need to. A horse in Calico, he ran at Seville the previous start, won nicely off 129, but here's where the race changes. Aidan Coleman studies him into the next obstacle, whereas Harry Skelton absolutely sends Calico, who gets a cracking jump and just puts Jonbon under pressure here. And you're a little bit worried the response wasn't instant for a horse that in the past had been quite a keen-going individual, and you're definitely a little bit concerned. Aidan's not panicking, he knows he is on the best horse in the race, but here, certainly, Harry Skelton is getting some cracking jumps out of Calico. The last one on the back wasn't so good. Now Jonbon's coming out on top. What was positive, I think the time read well in the context of the other races on the card, especially compared to Fear the Glory. A little edging to the right again at the final obstacle. I think the ground was probably quick enough for him. He hasn't really extended overly to the line. He's always doing enough. I think Calico has run exceptionally well under a very well-judged ride from Harry Skelton. And this was a horse that was a stakes flat performer. And those cheek piece combination, the sheepskin noseband and sheepskin cheek pieces that worked so well at Seville, has seen him finish much stronger than we did previously.
Yeah, Jonbon's only run to a mid-140s there, James. That's not good enough to win an Arkle, surely.
That bare performance isn't, but it was a race which Aidan Coleman knew a 140 performance would have been sufficient to win the contest. So he certainly wasn't asked. Now I'm going to go back to the Henry VIII, where I was very impressed with him. Only 1.1 seconds slower than Edward Stone. He jumped very well. It was a cosy success. I thought he looked really good. So what has happened to Jonbon? Is it just things slightly fell apart at Warwick? It was very much a prep run, ground quick enough. Aidan caught a little bit unawares by Harry Skelton. Or is he a horse that's going a little bit more relaxed than what he used to be?
Well, he is. We'll come to that. Let's have a look at the top Novices Hurdle first of all to see him against his chief Arkle market rival, El Fabiolo. Now, there wasn't much between them at the finish here, and I love the way Jonbon battled to score, but there will be some who say if 3 out, El Fabiolo hadn't got a right or bump, he would have gone and won this race and beaten Jonbon. What do you think?
If El Fabiolo had a hard race in the Supreme at Cheltenham, would he have come into this race in such good form? Jonbon did try and give it to Constitution Hill, at least coming down to the hill, and had a hard race for second. I really like the attitude of Jonbon, like yourself here actually, because it looked like he was going to get headed, but I felt at the line it looked like he was actually well on top again at the end.
And I think over fences, we can say Jonbon is a more polished jumper than El
A
Fabiolo.
safer jumper, that is for sure. El
Better
Fabiolo
jumper.
at Sandown, and the first time at Warwick, not last time at Warwick in the Kingmaker. I'd probably put that down to the ground, to be honest.
I think what's interesting about the two of them, I remember the vibe on the day, the sense on the day was that El Fabiolo, just the stature of the horse, he's a physically very imposing horse. Jonbon would be a little bit neater in comparison. The view was that when it comes to a chasing career, maybe El Fabiolo will really leave his
Improve
hurdles fall behind.
The extra
And
bigger
whether,
obstacles.
yes, and whether Jonbon will improve as much remains to be seen. What's your take on that?
I thought in the Henry VIII he had improved nicely, going from hurdles to chases. The way he sailed over the fences down down the back, I was really impressed, and I felt if he'd been in the Tingle Creek itself, he would have been nearly good enough to beat Edwardstone. So I still got plenty of positives, but I don't forget when I first saw him in the media day at Newbury, he looked an absolute mess, sweating, looked exceptionally difficult, didn't want to work with the other horses. He went on his own.
Which he does in the morning. He does everything on his own.
Exactly,
basically.
but that's why when Calico ranged upsides him, you thought he naturally would have wanted to take off and give Calico a bit of a fight. They've worked tremendously well to get him nice and settled, but does he need that little bit of spark to give him that edge he has over his rivals? And the edge didn't really look there at Warwick the other day. So if you're being negative towards Jonbon, that was disappointing.
Okay, let's have a look at the Arkle betting. So you want to have a horse, surely, who's more settled, more straightforward, less sweaty, but you're putting forward that perhaps that is his edge, and without that, maybe the talent is lacking a bit.
Possibly, and there's only so much mileage in a horse. If they're that edgy in the mornings and in their work, they aren't going to last as long as a horse like Constitution Hill. It's lovely and relaxed, anyone can particularly ride him. Not tricky, and I just worry long term what's Jonbon's career going to be like. As he becomes more settled, you look too settled at Warwick. But a big plus to me, Dysart Dynamo in the race, 3 chase starts in the UK. Jonbon's ended up making the running effectively. Could he be that much better when he's got a horse like Dysart Dynamo to follow, which is what El Fabio Lewis had over in Ireland? I'm still going to stick with Jonbon, still pretty confident with him.
Let's move on to the mares, a couple of mares. First of all, we saw Theatre Glory win, very nice, the mares' hurdle. Now, yes, it was a depleted race, of course, because we didn't have last year's Cheltenham Mares Novices Hurdle winner in there, but Theatre Glory beat what was in front of her or behind her at this stage. I think she appreciated the ground as well. She jumped pretty efficiently, and Connections have always held her in pretty high regard, although not high enough regard to give her an entry at Cheltenham.
Yes, and I thought on her first run back, they put the £7 claimer on in the Jerry Field, and she did lose a jockey on that occasion, but she wasn't entered. She's 4 from 4 and completed starts on good ground. I think that really plays to her strengths, and if Marie's Rock does sidestep into the stayed hurdle, that will be an option. Ollie's Wishes does provide a little bit of a test down the back straight, but there isn't really much to pressure her. Now, the time was particularly slow, especially in comparison to Jonbon, one of the slowest times on the card, actually. She wasn't tested. You go back to the Grey Dawning form where she was third off 137. You could say it was the softer ground conditions that didn't play to her strengths, but when she's taken on stronger company, she has struggled. So for me, I think she'll need to step up if she does intend to go for the mares.
Would you put her in there?
Personally, no.
You've got potentially 2 from the yard already in there, haven't you?
If you get
It feels like there's other spring targets she could run in.
I'd say I'd keep her fresh and head for easier pickings.
Okay. Well, while we're on that, mares, give me a line on Honeysuckle.
Right race. That's where I'd be heading if I was lucky enough to have a
Yeah,
horse
I
like
agree.
Honeysuckle. I just feel
This is not the popular opinion,
it is
James.
not
You
the
realise
popular
saying
opinion.
that
I
you're
know.
going to get lynched.
Sacrilege by Lydia.
Yeah.
I definitely won't be invited back. But I just feel they weren't the strongest of races that she won. We got State Man and Constitution Hill, both of them. Yes, there might be accidents or mishaps, but I still think the Mares' Hurdle is the way to go. And I loved it when she won the Mares' Hurdle. I thought that was the best race of that festival 2 years previously, where she beat the 2 Rich Ritchie horses.
Get out. Let's have a look at Luccia. She was very good at Exeter. What a good day for Nikki Henderson the following day. She is in the Supreme, but that's not going to happen, is it? This was her winning very comfortably. She's almost certainly going to go down the Mares Novices route, and this was the race won by Levenboy the previous year, going on then to score at Cheltenham.
She's very good. I like the speed she's got on the level. No surprise, the dam Amber actually didn't particularly take the hurdling for Nikki, but was placed in stakes races on the flat. Apart from the final hurdle, I thought her jumping was good. I felt pre-race that Laddie Gag there back in 3rd place might provide a little bit of a test, taking on the Geldens. Certainly proved not to be the case here. She's just lost concentration a little bit on her own out in front, and that isn't great. Nikki says Nika does a lot of schooling in the indoor school. They want to make sure she uses her back end properly. She had a horrendous stifle injury last year, which they're worried that she might never actually be able to jump a hurdle, but she jumps them adeptly. For me, the Mares' Hurdle, Mares Novice Hurdle is like to be a lot bigger field. You get a lot more with people taking a chance, and that might be my only worry. The £5 penalty I wouldn't be worried about. Love Envoy, Lorena, Let's Dance, Lamini all won with the £5 penalty, and Astro Diamond, the main rivals, got that penalty. If I knew the Supreme was going to be a small field, that would make it more encouraging for me to go there. But speaking to Nico would like to try it. But
You've done me again, absolute curveball. But the man that is happy for Honeysuckle to run in the mares is saying he might run Luccia in the Supreme.
But I think Luccia might be good enough to win the Supreme. I don't think Honeysuckle's good enough to win the Champion.
There you go. You go where you can win.
Option, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Walking on Air, we're going to get a little tip coming up, but Walking on Air was a winner of the Per Temps qualifier for Nicky Henderson. Is no doubt going to head there. Looks about the right... Well, should have a nice enough weight in it. This was comfortable.
It was the first time I'd seen him actually in the paddock. He's a lovely looking horse out of that wonderful race mare Refinement. Highly regarded. His jumping fell to pieces when he went to Aintree last year. The first 2 starts of his campaign, very much steadily run races didn't suit him. And even here, it wasn't the most ideal race, but he could and clear quite nice in the idle and the running. Not going to do his handicap mark any harm at all. I think he could still be very much well treated. This was off 133. I think they'll be going 138, the handicapper. Put him on a nice weight. The big field, I think, will suit him down to the ground. You're going to get a much stronger pace.
I'm going to raise you at
138. You're going to raise me higher.
I think so.
Sabrina's pretty exposed.
Yeah, I'm not saying he should, but I just think the nature of it being a qualifier, that I think he might be pushing 140. I don't think that's right, but I think he might be.
Possibly. Either way, if he goes 140, I wouldn't be too concerned. I think he's got plenty of scope in hand. He's going to make a lovely chaser next year, but I just felt there's a few firms that offer 5 places already. We know that's kind of his aim. If they do fancy him, on the day he's probably going to be a bit shorter.
Okay, so that's your ante-post selection, James Millman.
That is my
Walking on
choice
Air,
for
8-1 for the Per Temps final.
Yeah, that is the one.
Good stuff. All right, we'll take a little pause there. When you rejoin us, we'll be looking at a Nichols Newbury no-show. Newbury raced on Betfair Super Saturday on pretty quick ground for that time of the year. It was billed as a day that Paul Nicholls might just go through the card, but by and large his runners disappointed to a horse. The first of them was McFabulous. Now, he was found to have an irregular heartbeat after the race and for a little while after the race as well. So excuses for that. It must give you doubts about the form.
Yes, and I worry a little bit for the team actually. It was that it hadn't settled down the following morning. So it might just be he's going to take a little while to get back on track. 4 course records during the course of the day at Newbury. No watering allowed due to the nature of their licence. And ultimately, it was a disappointing day for Paul Nicholls. It happens, though.
Does it make you worry about I know, just by and large, the 3 mile UK novice form, the Corto Star form. I know this isn't a reason to worry about that form necessarily, but do you just doubt it a little bit?
You have to, but generally, it's most of the divisions. The strength and depth is there over in Ireland. It's not so much over here.
Okay. Yeah, he was ultimately pulled up, and that was a great shame for him. Let's move on to Zanza winning the Denman chase. He doesn't look Cheltenham bound. Hitman is a possibility for a Ryanair. He bled last time. Things I don't think were absolutely right here. When he gets to dominate, great, but he didn't have it all his own way here, and I'm not convinced now. I supported him on the day, but
I've never been particularly convinced by him.
No.
But on this occasion, Paul says in hindsight, if he'd known Kalashnikov and the blinkers was going to go so hard, so early, he probably would have taken the lead over the 3 mile trip.
But I don't think that suits him.
No, but you go in that fraction, it suited Zanza, sat out the back, loving Newbury. Great for Philip Hobson and his team to get 3,000 winners on the board. Speaking to Tom O'Brien next day, he said if Zanza was in a 0 to 100 away from Newbury, he wouldn't be that confident that he'd get the job done. He's just that kind of horse. He looked very good on that occasion. Hitman, not ideal, is there anyway, even if he does not quite see out the 3 mile heading back on a slightly disappointing effort.
Yeah, I wonder if Aintree, if he can dominate over 2.5 somewhere.
That would suit more, but I think the Ryanair's going to be so open, it could be even more open after this weekend. It's got to be an option.
Did we get a steer onto the champion chase with Funambule Sivola winning yet again, beating Grenadine in the game spirit? Grenadine, he disappointed in this race before and come out and backed up okay. But there again, Funambule Sivola ran second in the champion chase off the back of his run in this last year.
Yeah, speaking to Venetia, she hates running horses on quick ground, but this horse does handle the conditions quite nicely. It was good to see him back. He looked a little bit lifeless, I thought, in a few starts earlier on this season. This was an ideal opportunity. Grenadine, he's done it before, disappointed and bounced back. I think he'll be back here at Sandown for the celebration. That's going to be his main aim. And Paul said maybe that time here just doesn't particularly suit him. He's fresh and well in the autumn. Midwinter's not ideal, and then he'll freshen up and come back. But it wasn't a great positive. He should have won that, even disappointing. And again, the finishing effort wasn't particularly strong.
He's run a stone and a half below form, isn't he?
Well below formalistic, nearly nabs him for third. And I don't think any of the horses particularly handed the ground apart from the winner.
Do you want to see some of the craziest pricing up for the Cheltenham Festival? You'll see.
Away you go.
Here we go. Energumen 6-4. Beaten by Edwardstone and Edajit last time, fair and square.
I'm going to go by
What's going on there?
Willie Mullins' reaction and the fact that he didn't seem that flustered or concerned. Race delayed by a week. There's a lot of argument about the white paint on the obstacles. If you miss the first, you put you on the back foot. Things didn't go ideal. Edwardstone, I think it is solid. I think he probably would beat Edajit if the race was run again, because Tom rightly was looking at his main rival Energumen, and the winner got a bit of a easy time on the front end. I'm still sticking Energumen for the champion.
Are you?
Unfortunately so, yes.
All right. Even though he's shorter in the betting, I'll just have a match bet with you in Edwardstone.
Yeah, well, match bet.
Outright,
secured.
cup of coffee.
Yep, yeah, definitely.
Job
Deal
done. He owes me one anyway. Job done.
Job done, I'm already one up.
Edwardstone, it will get their hot pace to chase. He wasn't fully ripe for last time.
And a stone bruise when he came back as well.
He did.
I love Edwardstone. I just think he's not as good as Energumen on his day.
Okay. I'm going to give you an
Free
anti-post
coffee.
tip.
I will be picking that up off you just after the festival.
Anti-post tip coming up. The race I'm keen to get stuck into, anti-post, is the Supreme Novices Hurdle. I like exploring experience in the race and having a look at a favourite who could just be vulnerable. I think definitely the top of the market. There's a few in there that are vulnerable. I don't want to side with the current favourite off the back of his disappointing run last time for all he came back lame. I think Chasing Fire's got a good chance for Ollie Murphy. He looked very good in his first two starts, albeit that they, on paper, he won as he liked and should have done. But this was much better. I thought he won nicely as a bit of a stayer at the distance as well. He has got speed, but he ground it out quite nicely. You'll remember that with Thomas Darby in these colours, Ollie Murphy worked very close a few years ago, bumped into Classical Dream. The horse finished second. I think he's got a nice profile for the race. He's had 3 hurdle starts so far. Wouldn't mind him having another one, but he's not going to. As I say, I like experience for the race, but I think a nice each way 14-1 poke Chasing Fire will do nicely. I think he's pretty smart, so I'm happy to play at the bigger price as opposed towards the top of the betting with Facile Vega. Some news, some possible Cheltenham news. Oisin Murphy is back today. We're currently at Sandown. He's back at Chelmsford today as we're doing this. He's got a jumps licence, and his agent has suggested he might follow in the footsteps of some riders, Jamie Spencer and Richard Hughes, Pizarro, who have ridden in the champion bumper.
Yeah, interesting. Oisin, obviously he's back soon. Hopefully he does stay in bumpers and doesn't go over obstacles, because
he's not going to go.
I quite like to use him for our yard on the flat races, but yeah.
He's not going to do a Johnny Murter and ride in the Stairs Hurdle, is he?
No, I wouldn't think so. I was actually surprised when I watched back that Johnny Murter rode such good hurdlers actually during that little winter he had riding over hurdles. Oisin, it's something different, isn't it? Flat jockeys can be successful in this race. It's a rough race. I rode in the Aintree Mayor's bumper one year and got down to the start, and there wasn't much space circling around. It was definitely a different test than riding the flat when you're all lined up in stalls, but he's an exceptionally talented rider, and then whatever Oisin puts his mind to, he's been doing a lot of show jumping, hunting recently, and a champion bumper, like I say, can be won by flat jockeys.
Okay. I enjoyed that.
Did you?
Yeah, it was probably the only chance I'm going to get, so I'm glad.
Probably
same
here as well.
Well, yeah. You never know. Maybe Lydia will look and be like, Ruby's good, but...
I wish that would be the case. But no, it's been very, very enjoyable, and I look forward to that coffee in due course.
We'll see about that. Right. Hope you enjoyed all of that. That is this week's Road to Cheltenham. 18 back next week.
Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.
Subscribe to Racing TV's YouTube channel now to watch more great races like this.